off at the first landing. Lewis Carroll ampersand quo. Just the place for a snark. Ampersand quo. The bellman cried, as he landed his crew with care, supporting each man on the top of the tide by a finger entwined in his hair. Ampersand quo. Just the place for a snark. I have said it twice, that alone should encourage the crew. Just the place for a snark. I have said it thrice, what I tell you 3 times is true. Ampersand quo. The crew was complete. It included a boots, a maker of bonnets and hoods, a barrister, brought to arrange their disputes, and a broker, to value their goods. A billiard marker, whose skill was immense, might perhaps have won more than his share, but a banker, engaged at enormous expense, had the whole of their cash in his care. There was also a beaver, that paced on the deck, or would sit making lace in a bow, and had often, the bellman said, saved them from wreck, though none of the sailors knew how. There was one who was famed for the number of things he forgot when he entered the ship: his umbrella, his watch, all his jewels and rings, and the clothes he had bought for the trip. He had 42 boxes, all carefully packed, with his name painted clearly on each, but, since he omitted to mention the fact, they were all left behind on the beach. The loss of his clothes hardly mattered, because he had 7 coats on when he came, with 3 pair of boots, but the worst of his was, he had wholly forgotten his name. He would answer to an quo. Hi. Ampersand quo. Or to any loud cry, such as an quo. Fry me. Ampersand quo. Or an quo. Fritter my wig. Ampersand quo. To an quo. What you may call Ampersand quo. Or an quo. What was his name? Ampersand quo. But especially an quo. Thingamajig. Ampersand quo. While, for those who preferred a more forcible word, he had different names from these, his intimate friends called him an quo. Candelens and quo. And his enemies and quo. Toasted cheese and quo. Ampersand quo. His form is ungainly, his intellect small, ampersand quo. So the bellman would often remark, ampersand quo. But his courage is perfect. And that, after all, is the thing that one needs with a snark. Ampersand quo. He would joke with hyenas, returning their stare with an impudent wag of the head, and he once went a walk, paw in paw, with a bear, ampersand quo. Just to keep up its spirits, ampersand quo. He said. He came as a baker, but owned, when too late, and it drove the poor bellman half mad, he could only bake bride cake, for which, I may state, no materials were to be had. The last of the crew needs a special remark. Though he looked an incredible dunce, he had just one idea, but, that one being an quo. Snark and quo. The good bellman engaged him at once. He came as a butcher, but gravely declared, when the ship had been sailing a week, he could only kill beavers. The bellman looked scared, and was almost too frightened to speak, but at length he explained, in a tremulous tone, there was only one beaver on board. And that was a tame one he had of his own, whose death would be deeply deplored. The beaver, who happened to hear the remark, protested, with tears in its eyes, that not even the rapture of hunting the snark could atone for that dismal surprise. It strongly advised that the butcher should be conveyed in a separate ship, but the bellman declared that would never agree with the plans he had made for the trip. Navigation was always a difficult art, though with only one ship and one bell, and he feared he must really decline, for his part, undertaking another as well. The beaver's best course was, no doubt, to procure a second-hand dagger-proof coat, so the baker advised it, and next, to insure its life in some office of note. This the baker suggested, and offered for hire on moderate terms, or for sale, 2 excellent policies, one against fire and one against damage from hail. Yet still, ever after that sorrowful day, whenever the butcher was by, the beaver kept looking the opposite way, and appeared unaccountably shy.